Welcome everybody. So what do I mean by Generation 8.5? Well, in another video recently, before I started talking about my PlayStation 3 backlog, I got into a little bit of a rant about how I thought video games had sort of peaked, the industry, the consoles. It's kind of peaked with Generation 7, the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and I just think that Generation 9, it's not really happened. It's a bit of a fallacy in my opinion, just my opinion, but I think that we're kind of in like a mid-generation phase where we're told it's Generation 9, but for me it just doesn't feel like we've actually ever achieved that. I mean, we're 4 years in and we've still not really seen, in my opinion, what any of the systems could truly do. Now hopefully that will happen. They will go on to prove in the next year or two that they are the true Generation 9 consoles, and the games will follow to prove that. But up to now, I don't think that's happened. I think we are dealing with consoles and games that are a very small incremental improvement on what we had in the true Gen 8. So your Xbox Ones and your PlayStation 4. I just don't think that we've moved on enough to really consider the current gen as truly Gen 9. I know it's called that. I know I perhaps sound silly. I know lots of you out there probably think I'm talking nonsense, but for me, we've not quite reached that point yet. If you look at the games, the catalogue of games, there are some belters in there, of course there are. And I'm not saying the consoles themselves are not in themselves good consoles. I just don't think they are the leap forward that they should have been, or they've not proven to be yet, compared to Gen 8. And Gen 8, although an improvement on Gen 7, as I said in the previous video when I had my little rant about thinking that Gen 7 is the peak of video gaming so far, Gen 8 was a subtle improvement in graphics and power of the consoles, but it's been that steady decline for me of diminishing returns, kind of being fooled with all the bells and whistles sort of adverts and marketing at times, and people on YouTube going on about PS5 and Xbox Series X. But if you pause and think about what you had potentially if you were a Gen 7 player, maybe you're not old enough to really go back that far, I don't know. But if you go back, I think we're being hoodwinked a little bit with this current gen. We've not seen anything like a true generation leap. If you look at, say, Master System, the 8-bit era, and the NES, whether you were Team Nintendo or you were Team Sega, when the 16-bit era kicked in, you were wowed. It was a big event and you really wanted the Mega Drive or the Super Nintendo, and when you were lucky enough to get one, you saw that massive improvement and you were just taken aback. It was a new experience and you were wowed and you felt like you'd entered a new era. And that happened again and again up to Gen 7. For me personally, and you guys out there might disagree, let me know in the comments, but for me personally, that wow factor and that true experience of getting a new next leap up, next gen console hasn't happened since moving from Gen 6 to Gen 7. And this current generation of consoles, they need to pull the finger out. Sony and Microsoft, they need to pull the finger out. I'm not so sure, as I think I mentioned in the previous video, I'm not so sure that they actually care that much what we think. They don't seem to, but they definitely need to pull the finger out. And next time we get what is technically the Gen 10, it's going to have to be something spectacular for me anyway, to feel like we've jumped finally from Gen 8 through to what should be Gen 10. I hope it's not going to feel like a Gen 9.5. I think Switch, Nintendo, you can maybe put outside this little bubble. Them I would consider possibly the Switch are Gen 8.5, simply because they had the failed Wii U and they came to the party with the Switch and it's kind of like a crossover console. So you could probably argue that that's an 8.5 as well, a Gen 8.5. And the difference with Nintendo, though, I think that they've got their own set of hard to explain. I think they've got with Mario that their branding, that they go about it their own way. And if you're Team Nintendo, you probably feel more than satisfied with the Switch. I mean, I recently got one. The kids have had a Switch Lite for ages, but I recently purchased a Switch so they could just play the games here and stuff on the big screen, and I'm more than happy with it. I think it's a great console. Would I class that as a Gen 9 console? No, I wouldn't, but it's a great console. I'm not so sure even that Nintendo and the Switch, and again, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm not even so sure whether they're actually trying to hoodwink us into believing that they're truly Gen 9 with the Switch. I know it's pitched technically as the Switch, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, but I don't know, that they just do their thing, Nintendo, whereas Xbox, PlayStation, Microsoft, Sony, I think they've been sort of stringing us along a bit with this idea that we've really jumped generation. We've had incremental increases, and in themselves they are good consoles, but when it's truly Gen 10 time, they're going to have to do a lot more to win me back, because I am quite dismayed with this generation of consoles and the games. You find yourself, or I do, with my Series S, I find myself going to my games catalogue, and because I've been an Xbox Microsoft account for a while, I've obviously got Xbox One titles on there, and I'll play them from my back catalogue, and I don't really notice most of the time whether I'm playing an Xbox One game or a Series game. Granted, I've not got a Series X, but I don't think that makes that much difference either. So for me, the current gen, it's not a true Gen 9. They need to do a lot more in the coming months, next year or two, to really get the most out of the consoles and prove to us that they are a true Gen 9 range of consoles and video games. But it's not happened for me yet. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are we in really Gen 8.5, like I say, or do you think we've got the Gen 9 consoles and you're looking forward to whatever Gen 10 brings? Let me know. Bye for now.